Welcome again to the second session in our high-dosage tutoring leadership series, Implementation Unpacked, what it really takes to implement high-dosage tutoring. A few housekeeping tips before we get started. The webinar is being recorded. Everyone here and anyone who registered but couldn't attend will also receive the recording in the next day or so. Please feel free to share this recording with your colleagues if you'd like to. Also, I wanted to point out there's a Q&A box in your Zoom panel. If you have questions for me or this panel of presenters, please feel free to drop your questions in there, and we will try to get to as many as possible during the dedicated Q&A portion of our webinar. High-dosage tutoring has been proven to accelerate learning and improve student outcomes, but implementation can be complex. Today, after some introductions, we'll explore conversation style, the real-world challenges districts face, and I'll share strategies from Tutor.com partners that have addressed these challenges, while Chayne Turano will include what the research shows about making high-dosage tutoring programs sustainable and impactful. And next, we'll hear from Dr. Ambries, who will unpack Pomona Unified School District's high-dosage tutoring implementation. I'm Kara Hall. I'll be moderating the webinar today. I am the Senior Director of Customer Success. I've been implementing Tutor.com programs for the last 18 years. More recently, the last 6-ish years or so, my role is to lead the team of customer success specialists and managers that work with all of our tutoring partners that are K-12 schools, K-12 school districts, or Gear Ups. We see the challenges. We like to be solution mindset, have that solution mindset always. My team is great at working with our partners hand in hand to find a solution to an implementation challenge and make sure that it works well with that school's context and the students are getting the right dosage. Ultimately, that's what's the most important to us. I'm thrilled to be joined today by two outstanding panelists. Chayne Turano is the Quality and Improvement Manager with the SCALE initiative through the National Student Support Accelerator at Stanford University, where she helps define and advance tutoring quality standards nationwide. The SCALE initiative integrates research, policy, and practice across critical issues in K-12 education in order to affect broad-scale change for educational good. You can find out more about the NSSA and the SCALE initiative at accelerate.stanford.edu/initiative/scale. Dr. Rosario Ambries is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for pre-K through elementary at Pomona Unified School District. The Pomona Unified School District is a world-class educational system committed to respect, relationships, responsibility, and results. You can find more information about Pomona Unified School District at proudtobe.pusd.org. Together, Chayne and Rosie bring deep expertise in research, program design, and district-level implementation. We're lucky to have these powerhouse speakers with us today, and I know you're going to walk away with both big-picture insights and practical takeaways from their experiences. There's a lot of information here about what our high-dosage tutoring program looks like. So instead of reading it all, let me draw your attention to a few key things. A trusted track record. Between our flagship service of on-demand tutoring and now high-dosage tutoring, we've delivered over 28 million sessions in more than 25 years at Tutor.com, helping students make measurable gains in math and in English language arts. We are built by educators. The high-dosage tutoring program was developed by a team of seasoned teachers with an average of over 10 years each in the classroom, bringing that expertise into every element of program design. We are aligned and research-based. Everything is tied to state standards and grounded in best practices from leading education research. We are pleased to have earned the Tutoring Program Design Badge from the National Student Support Accelerator, which demonstrates that our program is aligned with the best practices for quality standards that produce the best outcomes for students. And we have highly trained tutors. Our tutors are rigorously trained, background checked, and supported to deliver consistent, high-impact instruction to every student that they meet. So what we've created is a highly impactful high-dosage tutoring program, a program built by experienced educators, delivered by highly trained tutors, and grounded in solid research, all with the goal of helping students not just catch up, but thrive. Our high-dosage tutoring program is built on what the research says works to produce the best possible outcomes for students. Frequent sessions, 3 or more times a week, using high-quality, standards-aligned curriculum delivered in small groups with targeted assessments and consistent tutors. This structure isn't accidental. Studies show it can accelerate learning by up to 2.5 years in a single school year. and it's the most effective intervention for closing gaps for disadvantaged students. So let's jump right in. Chayne, for those of us who may not have yet heard about the great work that the NSSA is doing, would you please give us a little bit of background?
Sure, absolutely. If you'll head over to the next slide, actually, our vision is there. Our vision is that every student in need has access to an effective tutor who champions and ensures their learning and success. We do this with 3 different branches. We go out into the districts and work with tutoring programs to conduct research. We then create some tools around that research, which can help with implementation. And then we engage with stakeholders to try to get those tools into the right hands so that it can get into implementation with the students.
All right, before we jump into highlighting our challenges, we wanted to take a little bit of a poll. So Mercedes, if you could bring up our poll for us, we wanted to get a little bit of feedback from you about what you think the top challenge that you might face when implementing high dosage tutoring, or that you anticipate facing when implementing a high dosage tutoring program. I'll give you just a few minutes to read all of those responses and click your answer. But while we're doing that, I will just kind of highlight the top challenges that we're going to focus in on today. These are the top challenges we've really encountered with partners when it comes to implementing high dosage tutoring and how those challenges can be addressed. We focus on 4 primary challenges: communication and buy-in, scheduling, consistent attendance, and student engagement. For each of these, I'll describe the challenge and showcase some ways that Tutor.com partners have addressed each one, and then Chayne will tell us what the research says. All right, Mercedes, we have our poll.
We do. It looks like an even split between student attendance and finding time for tutoring during the school day.
Well, that happens to be some of the things that you're not alone. If you have had that as a challenge or anticipate it being a challenge, you are definitely not alone. All right, I see those results now. Great. All right. So communication and buy-in. Effective communication is the foundation of a successful tutoring program. Without alignment between district leaders, program leaders, principals, teachers, parents, and students, it's difficult to build a momentum for the program. A common gap occurs when communicating the why behind providing high dosage tutoring. The mission and vision between the purchasing decision maker at the district or program level and the school site leaders and the teachers at each school location that need to implement the program. We've seen that programs succeed when the leaders set clear expectations, share data transparently, celebrate early wins. For example, scheduling site-specific meetings or providing resources for families ensures that everyone understands both the purpose and the impact of tutoring. One partner of ours, situated in a rural, low socioeconomic area, has found great success in getting teacher buy-in by having teachers who have successfully implemented high dosage tutoring in their classes present to other teachers, peer-to-peer, about how they achieve success in providing their model. We find this to be effective because the new teachers are hearing this information from one of their own, and it makes it a lot more meaningful, and they bring it to them and into their hearts a lot more readily. We always ask these questions. What went well? What could have gone better? What do you wish you knew about high dosage tutoring before you started? And many times this includes an emphasis on using the data available in the teacher's Tutor.com account to make decisions. With this context, it becomes easier for teachers to share their stories with others. We also learn from this feedback and operationalize it into the resources that we provide for all of our partners, which includes resources for parents. In fact, the website highlighted at the bottom of this slide is our Partner Resource Center, which contains links to helpful resources we've curated for all of our partners that implement high dosage tutoring or on-demand tutoring programs. Chayne, what does the research say is important for addressing communication gaps and sharing data?
Well, the first thing that we want to do is kind of place that importance on the data-informed tutoring. That communication is so important because that tends to be the way that we can get access to the data on both the school district side and the tutoring provider side when they're working together. So what we've seen is over and over again that the most successful programs have really clear learning objectives, and they establish that strong two-way communication so that you can closely monitor what the student progress is. Then you can test and adapt the approaches that you're taking. You can change the operations to fit the context of the school and the context of the provider, so that everything's kind of working in sync. And as you are getting that data in, the quicker you can get it in and be responsive to it, the better your programs are going to be, and the more the students are going to benefit from that. In addition, formative assessment is a really big part of tutoring sessions, and being able to sync the data that comes from the classroom with what's happening in the tutoring sessions will do two things, right? It's going to decrease the amount of assessment that you are subjecting the students to. You can kind of share that data, and it's also going to improve your coherence between what's happening in the classroom and what's happening in the tutoring session, which research has shown is really beneficial for students. Furthermore, what we've seen is that when communication between all of the stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, the leadership, the tutoring program, the school district, when that communication is improved, we see higher attendance to those tutoring sessions. We see more engagement from the students. And that dosage is so important to get the results and the student outcomes that you're looking for. So to bring it a little bit higher level, in order to help facilitate communication, a couple of things you can do proactively is to create transparency in the contract when you're setting up this program and this partnership. So the more transparent you are right from the beginning, the better outcomes you're going to get and better communication you're going to have. Second, creating that strong communication plan with multiple modes that reach multiple stakeholders. Everybody works a little bit differently. So creating a communication plan that works for the individuals involved who need to pass the data back and forth is really a really great way to be proactive and start off on the right foot. When you finally get into implementation, hosting a kickoff meeting where everybody can get that face-to-face introduction, whether that be virtually or in person, and then having those frequent touch points in the beginning when things are still settling down, when you're solidifying operations, when you're working out processes, when you're working out what works, so important. And then those touch points can get fewer and fewer as you go on, but you really want to start with frequent touch points in the beginning. And then finally, getting that strong administrator and teacher buy-in by engaging the stakeholders, so important. You need your leadership, you need the people who are involved to be engaged and to be on your team with this so that everybody's working in the same direction.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, very, very important. There's so much to say about that one piece of communication and data transparency. It's amazing. Okay, so the next challenge that we see fairly commonly is scheduling tutoring to occur without disrupting Tier 1 instruction during the school day, during the class period. One of the most common hurdles that we see. Schools often struggle to fit tutoring into already packed days without sacrificing their core instruction. The solution isn't one size fits all, but we've seen approaches like using advisory periods or elective periods, block scheduling, push in to small groups that allow tutoring to complement and not compete with classroom instruction. The goal is to align the student's school day with opportunities for tutoring that allow students the time and the flexibility to focus on tutoring in a way that will help to produce the most measurable gains on school-based assessments. One of our partners worked with their non-academic elective teachers to share the elective class responsibilities between the elective and tutoring. That meant that high-dosage tutoring students could have a reduced course load for their elective class because they were participating in high-dosage tutoring during that time. And a portion of the students' grade in their elective classes was made up from the participation grade that students got from being engaged in their tutoring sessions, attendance in tutoring, and progress on formative assessments. Another partner developed a flipped classroom model where students participated in tutoring during their traditional length 50-minute Algebra 1 class period. In that example, the teacher gave students short videos, lessons, and assignments from IXL to work on overnight before tutoring days and spent the first 10 minutes of this class period on each tutoring day reviewing that work. After each 30-minute session, high-dosage tutoring session, the teacher spent the last 10 minutes of the class reviewing the content from the class the night before and reinforcing the IXL work and what the students, for the next day, and what the students did in tutoring that day. In that way, the teacher was able to maintain focus on the required hours she spent on the curriculum, as well as engaging students with what they were covering with their tutors during high-dosage tutoring and the alignment there between those two. Chayne, what does the research say is important about scheduling tutoring to occur during the school day?
Well, first I want to piggyback off of what you're saying there is that that there are so many different scheduling models. There's always a way to work in high impact tutoring, and what that looks like in your specific school district and context, or wherever you're working in the tutoring sessions, can look very different. So having flexibility, having some creativity around your existing scheduling, and working it in different ways, it is a wonderful way to do that. So I'll talk about that in a minute. So in terms of the research, what we've found is that working tutoring sessions into the school day itself, rather than after school or before school, really helps with higher engagement, getting that dosage, having students actually show up to those sessions and be engaged. Another way to make sure that you're getting that higher attendance and higher enrollment is to do opt-out tutoring, where you kind of assume that the student is going to attend the session, and then the parents or guardians would need to kind of pull them out of tutoring. What we've seen in the research is that opt-in tutoring often doesn't reach the populations that it's intended to do. Another way, when you're thinking about scheduling and you don't want to disrupt Tier 1 instruction, one way to go about that for younger students is to actually schedule shorter sessions. So shorter sessions can often be accommodated in the day during small group instruction time, working it into an MTSS or multi-tiered systems of support model. And so making the session shorter but more frequent can often build it into that school day in a better way that's more accommodating to what your current scheduling looks like. And then finally, as you're thinking about bringing high impact tutoring into the school, or making it really work with implementation, you want to think about integrating it or replacing integrating it with programs that are already in your school, or replacing programs into your school. It can sometimes be difficult to just keep adding programs into what you're doing, because oftentimes there's so many different things that the students need. So working to see where high impact tutoring can serve the needs of your students and integrating it or replacing programs that are in existence now is a great way to kind of work it into the schedule.
All right, we move on now to attendance. Attendance is so important for student outcomes. If students don't come to tutoring, they don't get the benefit of the tutoring. And even with the right program design, attendance can make or break the results. Students miss sessions for many reasons, like tardy, they're absent, maybe they have after-school conflicts, or things that, reasons they need to leave school early, like sports or clubs. Maybe they have jobs or family obligations if tutoring is taking place after school. Districts that succeed put tutoring inside the school day, make sessions shorter or more frequent, and use incentives, whether it's recognition, rewards, or simply creating a culture where tutoring is seen as valuable and normal. Our partners have seen success when a teacher or a counselor calls home to check on chronically absent students. For the partner that scheduled tutoring to occur during advisory, that was first thing in the day. Students were notorious for drifting around campus and not coming to class on time. For those in that school, the school provided like a special breakfast snack, some muffins, I think, that were more kind of high value than the school breakfast items, to sort of entice to come to class, to come into the classroom to get that snack, and then to come into advisory to log into their high-dosage tutoring session. Yet other partners engaged their entire building staff, so that the building staff knew which students were selected for and which the importance of students up to class on time. Obviously, staff is already monitoring students for that are lollygagging beyond the bell, and getting them to class. But this staff was keenly aware that these tutoring students really needed to get into their class on time so that they could get into tutoring on time. That helped really make it a school culture, school awareness. All is aware that the importance of students' time. And what research say about the importance of student attendance?
So this is probably the biggest places where the research has shown that dosage is what matters. Students can't get what they need if they're not showing up to those tutoring sessions. And so the dosage is the one of the number one determinants of whether or not the tutoring sessions are going to bring the student outcomes that you're looking for. The other three pieces of research kind of have to do with attendance. We've already touched during scheduling during the school day, getting that regular communication, as you were saying, Kara, with the parents, with the teachers, with anybody who can encourage the students to be engaged with their tutoring sessions and then actually show up to them and remember them, provide reminders. All of those things are just so important, with that central point being that they need to be there and they need to be engaged in order to get the benefits of tutoring. So I'm going to drop down to the fourth bullet on the right-hand side and just talk a little bit about incentivizing that student attendance. You presented a lot of different ways that you've seen, Tutor.com implement those things. And then, we put out a district playbook that I linked up here in the slide that will be sent out, I believe, after, where we have an entire list of ideas of ways you can get students to increase their attendance. With some of them having to do with just creating a communication plan, creating reminders, incentivizing them to come with little treats and sort of things like that, and really tracking the dosage. One of the biggest things that runs through all of these incentivizing pieces is the student relationships. We really want to focus on creating relationships with the tutor and using the relationship with the student to stress how important those tutoring sessions can be and how impactful they can be in their lives. So that relationship-based piece is kind of where we focus a lot of our energy. The last thing that you also touched upon this, Kara, was with analyzing attendance and dosage data to identify root causes. So you had mentioned a couple of solutions that you saw with maybe changing some of the things during the school day. For example, one reason why the student might not be able to come to the tutoring sessions is because maybe it's early in the morning. Their schedule is showing that their tutoring sessions early in the morning, and then that student is consistently late to school. That might be inhibiting how many times they're making it to tutoring. So something as simple as moving their tutoring session to later in the day might address that root cause of their absence. So looking at the attendance, looking at the data, and then taking some time to analyze why they're not able to make it to their session can really give you good insights so that you can work around those challenges.
And thank you so much, Chayne, for sharing all these really valuable resources with everyone who has attended our webinar today. These are game changers when it comes to schools that really want to make a difference. And so final challenge that we're going to talk about for right now is turning reluctance into engagement. So not every student is immediately excited about tutoring. Reluctance often stems from a lack of confidence, the stigma of tutoring, missing prerequisite skills, not feeling good about working more time on something they're already challenged with at school. But we find that engagement grows when students feel supported and when tutoring is presented as a positive, social, rewarding experience. Strategies like peer encouragement, gamified leaderboards, or celebrating progress can help students shift from reluctance to active participation. Also, as they build that relationship with their tutor and their small group, is really effective at increasing engagement as well. All of our tutors are trained to effectively deliver support to multiple language learners. But one of our partners identified a student peer and a staff member that provided help in translating. So if the student was struggling with just mastering the English language and that was causing difficulty in tutoring, there are ways that staff and our tutors and a school can, and even peers can come along in support of that student. we don't want to detract from the meat of the tutoring session, but we find that there are ways that our tutors can facilitate all of that level of engagement that helps students overall be more confident and engaged in their sessions. Another of our partners created a leaderboard for their competitive students, showing who had the highest engagement in tutoring based on their tutor engagement scores. Still, other partners have created an elective or a subject course gradebook entry for participation in tutoring. So students can actually increase the grade in the class with their tutoring engagement by being engaged in tutoring. And still, other partners allow students to earn special privileges or build up points toward bigger rewards like pizza or ice cream parties. Special privileges like extended lunch period or something similar to that. We find that the trick to student engagement involves the treat of student outcomes, and success hinges on finding the currency that is most meaningful to your students. A part of our implementation process involves brainstorming with each school about what the currency is for those students and finding the motivation that will move the needle. Chayne, what does the research say is the most important about student engagement?
So when we look at student engagement, a couple of higher level ways that we've seen to influence this is to really get comprehensive training to your tutors with ongoing coaching so that you get really effective tutors. Really effective tutors are going to be able to address the needs of the student. They're going to personalize that tutoring session to what their students need. And that helps build the relationship. At the end of the day, that the most important piece is that student-tutor relationship. We have seen that facilitating those relationships can increase student attendance. And then again, going back to that regular communication can increase that student engagement. So on the implementation side, when you start by training your tutors on interventions, tutor moves, relationship building, that sets the tutor up for success in that tutoring session so they can really make a connection, a deep connection with the student that they're working with. Incorporating tutor coaching for continuous troubleshooting as they're going through their sessions. That way they're keeping lockstep with the student and with the student needs, and you don't see that divergence of them kind of separating and not connecting in that way. And then finally, getting support from school staff and caregivers and incentivizing tutoring attendance. We're kind of seeing a pattern here, right? That these are the core things that will increase student engagement, increase attendance, increase the student outcomes. And so these basic principles of improving the relationships, providing strong training, in building in that communication, they just become so important to your program. Oh, so as we wrap up this discussion on the challenges and head into Dr. Ambry's section on the school district, I just want to share that all of the links that on the slides that I was speaking about, they all linked to free resources from the National Student Support Accelerator that have been developed specifically for school districts, for tutoring programs, and for state leaders that are looking for resources to help build out their programs and implement with fidelity. So the links that I included throughout there focus on these three areas: the toolkit for tutoring programs, which is geared toward tutoring programs, the playbook, which is the district playbook, which is focused toward districts, and then available to both districts and tutoring programs is our tutoring program design badge, which will show you how well you're aligning to the research. It's a free 15-minute self-assessment that you can take on our website. So just wanted to share those resources.
Thank you so much, Chayne. And now let's hear from Dr. Rosario Ambris, who will share how Pomona Unified has been piloting high-dosage tutoring in elementary math. Dr. Ambris will highlight both the teacher and the student perspectives that have made their program so impactful.
Thank you. And I want to say good morning or good afternoon from wherever you are joining us. And thank you for that first part of this webinar session, because truly what you just shared this morning about what the research says about high dosage tutoring is what made it very effective here in Pomona Unified School District and our partnership with Tutor.com. So a little bit about our district. Pomona Unified is located, so our schools are located in 2 cities. The majority are in Pomona, and we have a few schools in Diamond Bar. We are situated in California. which is about 30 miles west of Los Angeles. We are the fourth largest in Los Angeles County. We currently have over 21,000 students that are part of our school district, but I'm just focused on elementary, which is my world. We have about 14,000 students in the elementary settings. So out of the 38 schools in Pomona, we have 24 that are elementary schools. On the slide, it shows our socioeconomic indicators. We have about close to 90% of our students are socioeconomically disadvantaged. Foster youth, close to 1% of our students. Homeless, 15% of our students. Students with disabilities make up 14.5% of our student population. On this slide, you can see our student demographics. We have African American students, 3.7%. Hispanic makes up the majority of our students, 86.1%. And as you can see, that is the makeup of our district. I won't spend too much time on all of them, but just capitalizing on a few. As a district, we really have been focused on engagement and climate. And so you can see our chronic absenteeism rate is 26.5%, which is still significantly high, but it has been a focus for the last several years, especially right after COVID. And as you can see at the bottom, we are actually decreasing the number of students who are, staying home for various reasons. So you can see our biggest, largest population of students who stay home for some reason is our TK and Kinder, which also can be a reason why they get sick, first time being in schools. But in TK, as you can see, we decreased this by 6%. Look at second grade, we've decreased it by 5%. So we're definitely decreasing it for all grade levels. So that has been a huge focus of our school district. And as you could also see, our suspension rate, 3.4, because what's important is to make sure that we have the students in the seat if we want to make an impact in their academics. And in the center, as you can see, this is why it's so important to focus on the academics and have the students in the seats, because if you look at our academic performance, this is an urgent need for us in Pomona. So if you look at our ELA proficiency, we're talking that only 36% of our students are scoring at the met or exceeded levels on the state testing. And so that's level 3, level 4, which means we have to begin addressing those students who are behind, who are scoring at that bottom 2 levels, which is 2 and 1. And math proficiency, only 23% of our students are scoring at level 3 and 4. And that is why we decided to focus on math in terms of having high dosage tutoring during the school day, because we've tried high dosage tutoring after school, but what happens? Our students don't stay consistently after school because we're competing with clubs, we're competing with sports, we're just, competing with many different things. And the beauty is that we're getting our kids in the seat. So how do we make that impact during the school day? And that's what the partnership with Tutor.com that I'll share with the next slide. And so here we had this partnership at 3 of our elementary schools. In one of our elementary schools, it was an in-person tutoring program that we put in place. And the other elementary school, it was a virtual setting, but still during the school day. And then the third, it was a mixture of both. And so here I just wanted to share, Rachel Agustini was actually the principal of Lopez Elementary, where we had the in-person tutoring occurring. And some of the things that stood out for the teachers that participated in this program, they capitalized on, it's the same tutors. They built relationships, which is key, right? Something that we share with teachers. It's so important to build relationships to make sure that students are engaged and they want to come back every single day. It's that having that relationship. And so that what was important and was valuable here at Lopez Elementary. The other piece is that Tutor.com came in definitely with a diagnostic assessment and a program to help focus and fill those gaps for our students. But they also aligned it with our core curriculum, which was iReady Math. And so they mirrored the way the program was set. And the way we made it work here is it was the tutoring session happened during the teacher's math block of instruction. So usually the teacher would start with a whole group instruction of the day's lesson. And then, I'm going to date myself because I've been with Pomona for 29 years. And when I started in 97, it was doing center, small group instruction. And so after the teacher started with that whole group instruction, then the children would break up into smaller groups. And that's where the tutor would work with the students. It could be a small group of 4, it could be with one-on-one. It all depends on exactly where the student was. And so the tutoring was aligned to our program. The tutors built the relationship. Consistently, they were there. And so they were able to support our program and the needs of the student. And so here's a testament to what the principal shared. If you can go to the next slide. Actually, yes. And here is just a snapshot of what the program looked like. We focused on grades 3 through 6. And like I mentioned in math, we had 3 elementary schools. And because it was successful this year, we've increased it to 12 schools during the school day tutoring, 12 out of the 24 elementary schools that we have. How do you find schools that are willing to do this type of work, right? Because as a classroom teacher, you're now like, for example, after school, we're competing with sports and clubs. Now during the school day, we're competing with high dosage tutoring, right? But it's finding the specific time within a day that this would work well with and to complement what's happening in the classroom. And so first, what we did, we found 2 of the 3 schools. One of them is a charter. The other 2 were the schools that were at the bottom in terms of math proficiency rates. And so it was working with the principals who I work with. And so it was talking to them. They definitely jumped on board. And then it's pitching it to the teachers and how we can complement their classroom instruction. And being able to do that, that's what was successful. One of the teachers that we had at Kellogg Elementary who was doing the virtual program, what she shared with me was it was very effective because it was small group. There was a small group structure. Even though she wasn't able to be physically in every small group, the beauty of this was that Tutor.com, they left notes and feedback and recordings where the teacher could go back, listen to the actual session with her students, see how the students were doing. If she needed to address something, go back, reteach a focus. She could, but that was very valuable to her. So having those session recordings, those notes, feedback from the tutor that was working with the students was very valuable. And so as I'm looking at the 3 different schools where we piloted the high dosage tutoring during the school day, I'm looking at not only our iReady data, but I'm also looking at their CAS, the California Assessment of Student Performance data, and every grade level made some growth that had the high dosage tutoring. And of course, it's not just one thing that makes an impact, but this is definitely part of that impact to the test scores. And so as you can see, we had 55 different groups across the 3 schools, 185 students. The other thing that the virtual teacher shared was that they were able to provide tutoring for all students. So yes, in a classroom, we have those mixture of students, right? Those students that are maybe 3 years, 2 years, a year behind, or some students that are at grade level and need to be challenged. So we were able to provide that differentiation for all students. So that was also a positive effect of having this type of tutoring during the school day. And so some of the engagement snapshots that were shared, you can see. Next slide. And I believe, Kara, you're capitalizing on this one.
I will do my best. I don't know that I can do this slide as nearly as much justice as you can, Dr. Umbries, but
Okay, then I can definitely talk about this one. So again, tutoring during the school day, as I mentioned before, you know, the challenge is finding teachers, but once we found those teachers, they begin to talk to other teachers about how it works in your classroom. So you want to pick those that are willing, right? And once those that are willing and they start seeing the data, then they start talking to their peers. It has to do with management and also having the support of the administrator, you know, and making sure that we're looking at the assessment, the progress monitoring along the way. Classroom teacher supervision, you know, that the general education teacher was present during those sessions. They provide the structure, the encouragement. Like one of the things I heard is, you know, how do you provide that engagement, feedback, recognition? And so all of our schools, elementary schools, we have what's called PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports. And so all of the schools have what's called PBIS tickets. It's tailored to their focus on behavior, responsibility, motivating students. It's usually tied to their school mascot. And so kids earn PBIS tickets as a result of being engaged and participating. You know, it's easy things that you can do as a teacher and as an administrator. You wanted to?
Yeah, can I jump in there? I would love to
Yes.
comment that what you're talking about too is kind of including your tutors in the culture of the school and integrating them so that they're part of the school ecosystem, which again we've seen time and again is so important to really get cohesion between the two programs and give the students a very coherent experience in their education.
Yes. And again, at one of the school sites, so actually both school sites, you know, the whole class participating. So being able to differentiate, you know, whether it's a student who has gaps or a student who's at grade level, that might not understand that particular lesson or might need to be challenged a bit. So it was being able to provide the gamut. Positive tutor-student relationships. And that was very important because they were able to see the same tutor frequently, consistently over time. That is important, right? It's just like a classroom teacher. They make that significant impact. Even a parent, you know, outweighs when it comes to a teacher. The teacher is, you know, significant in a student's life. And so the same with the tutor, being that consistent role model and helping them through those challenges. And the student feedback, as I shared from the teacher, she might have not been virtually in all of those sessions. And the other ones that were in person, you know, walking from group to group, those lessons were still recorded in the in-person. And so the teacher did have access to those recordings because they can't physically be with one entire group the entire time, but they had access to that and they were able to read over those notes. Then it allowed them to make those needed changes, improvements, change, you know, maybe a lesson or go back and reteach. So it definitely helped having those, that information shared from the tutor to the teacher, that constant communication.
Yeah, and then just to piggyback off of that a little bit, I think celebrating the successes, all of the successes that you see when you implement a high dosage tutoring program, that really keeps the ball rolling and it keeps getting more people engaged in it and supporting it. And that's what it takes to make a sustainable program.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to visit, well, all three campuses at different times. One, Kellogg on launch day when the virtual sessions were launching, but I also had the opportunity to visit at Lopez once the in-person tutoring program had been going on for a few weeks. And it was so great for me just to see that positive tutor-student relationships from my vantage point of visiting the campus for like the first and only time. But the students were coming into the space where they were going to be having their tutoring session, meeting with their tutors, and the students were waving, hi, hi, calling their tutor by name as they were even lining up to come into the space. So they were very excited to be there. And it was great to see that enthusiasm for some time they were going to spend doing math. And so, yeah, it was a really heartwarming way to see that interaction take place. And the teacher actually shared with us, the teacher of that class shared with us that the students say that they like to come to school on days when tutoring is happening because they're going to get to meet with their tutor. And they really like that attention that the tutor gave to that small group of students every single time it was happening. So just wanted to share that perspective.
Yes, and I would agree with you with that. You know, kids know, and they definitely will not want to miss a session or a day of school because they know they're looking forward to seeing their tutor and the session.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you, for this insightful information. And with that, I will remind all of our attendees once again about the Q&A. We have a few questions that we can work through as you're typing in your question. I wanted to open it up, though, Mercedes, to see if we have any questions from our attendees that you want to address first.
One comment from Lilia, which shares that some of the reluctance that I believe their district has is there are specific courses that students need tutoring with, such as sign language studies or principle of astronomy, especially upper level science courses that are specific. So not specifically a question, but I think just sharing that with the group as food for thought and one of their challenges.
So a question might be, is high dosage tutoring available in those science subjects or, other upper level maths and sciences? We focus a lot with high dosage tutoring on math and English language arts because we see that that's where the students are needing the most support at all levels. With Algebra 1, being sort of the gateway subject, right? It's the Algebra 1 proficiency is so important when it comes to not only success in upper level math courses, but also, just persistence and graduation rates are heavily correlated to a student's proficiency in Algebra 1. And math is, and ELA both, but math is one of those subjects where skills are going to build more sequentially. And so students that are experiencing gaps from before are needing to be caught up in order to be more successful moving forward. We at Tutor.com, we design our high dosage tutoring curriculum to meet the needs that are expressed the most by our district partners. And we have our district partners look at their student outcome measures in making those types of decisions. I-Ready scores like Dr. Umbries was mentioning in Pomona Unified, also state standardized test scores, a MAP assessment, or any other type of interim assessment or annual assessment that students are given, where we want to see the needles moved into building that proficiency level and making the most impact there.
I can jump in as well to kind of comment on this. So a lot of the research itself is done on high impact tutoring is really focused on early elementary, ELA, and math. So we've seen a lot of the research kind of speak to that level. And then if I could kind of separate from the research a little bit and just talk about implementation in terms of from my background as a classroom teacher, as you look at those upper level courses, if you do want to use some sort of high impact tutoring, what I would say is that your learning objectives might be more focused on process, on two things, really. First, making sure that the ELA is grade level. So using high impact tutoring to bring those language skills up to par, because things like all of the courses depend on strong language skills. So upper level science still depends on strong language skills. So first ensuring that those skills are in place. And then if you wanted to go into specific courses, maybe focusing your learning objectives on the process of how to acquire science, high upper level science vocabulary, right? How to attack a math problem, what processes would you look for? So that's one way that you could attack that if you were looking to do something on specific courses.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Chayne. No additional questions coming in just yet. To the audience, please feel free to continue to submit them. And I will move to the next slide.
Awesome. All right. I guess I should. Okay, maybe make it so I can see the next slide. Looking ahead, what do you see as biggest opportunities to make high dosage tutoring sustainable at scale? I'd like to ask Dr. Ambries to comment on this one first.
I think the biggest opportunities is being able to share the data, right? And one of the things that I did this year was, and when I work with our principals, is I was able to allow the two principals that were at Lopez and at Kellogg to kind of share how they got high dosage tutoring started. Where did they start? You know, how did they entice the teachers, those willing teachers, to get started and see, and also pick, you know, sharing the block of time that we use to get it started, which particular focus area. And I think that once they heard from their own colleagues of how they jump started it at their sites, shared what the data outcomes look like after using this, that we had more willing administrators to get this started and help their teachers because they saw the value and what the outcomes look like after doing this.
Thank you. Chayne, what's your perspective here?
In terms of making it sustainable, there are a couple of things that you can do. One, you can really align with what the school's goals are and the goals and vision of the school. The more you align your tutoring program with those larger goals, the more the leadership and the decision makers in your school are going to find the value in it and understand how it fits into the rest of the school's frameworks. Another opportunity for keeping it sustainable and really working it into the fabric of the school is to work it into your MTSS program. So taking advantage of what I need blocks, if you have that in your school, taking advantage of the small group time that is often worked into the fabric of the classroom sessions, and using that time for high dosage tutoring can kind of make it part of the school day and something that will continue to grow. What Dr. Ambries, just to double stamp what she's saying here, is to really call out the successes and make sure that everybody knows that you're seeing the outcome you're looking for, because what you really need here are people to champion it. You need people that are going to forge ahead, make it work, really look at the data and make sure that everything's driving well and working well and everybody's moving in the same direction. And then to keep getting support behind the program so that it is sustainable, so that people see the value in it and they keep investing their time, energy, and funding into the program. When they see the student outcomes, the support will follow.
And also, you know, I just want to add, also when the staff at the site see that it's consistently, they're showing up, the tutors are there, they're building relationships with the site, you know, they form part of the school. That is also very helpful. And that's what we've seen in our partnership with Tutor.com, you know, so that's what makes it also sustainable.
Thank you, everyone. There are two more questions, both coming from Maria. I'll share them at once. So, was there any difficulty in scheduling students? And then additionally, working in multiple schools, does that present any challenges with the schedules? Was the district using an outcome-based approach with HDT? And in the interest of time, we'll make that the last question. And while you all are answering that question, I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of resources in the chat before we wrap up.
I think that might be a question first for Dr. Ambries.
I would say that for scheduling for the students, it wasn't a challenge because, as I mentioned, one of the teachers shared Tutor.com came and they worked with all students. And so whoever they weren't working with, the beauty is that the teacher could also work with a small group or individual students at the same time. It's very important to help maximize the school day. And so we were very particular on the time of day that they were there. And so it was during that math block of instruction. And working with multiple schools, well, as I shared one school, it was an actual in-person tutoring sessions, and the other school had virtual. So I imagine there were different tutors. I never checked in with Tutor.com to see if they were the same or different tutors, but
It was the same tutor. So it's just meeting in a virtual context instead of face-to-face.
Okay, so then we were able to make it work. And hopefully that answered your question.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I don't see any additional questions coming in. I'm going to just, in the interest of time, move to the last couple of slides to wrap up, Kara. And
Yes.
I will put a couple of resources from Chayne in the chat as well.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your attendance and your attention and your participation with today's webinar. Join us for part 3 of this 3-part series coming up on October 15th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, which is about funding, making high-dosage tutoring a smart investment. Our panelists are there on the screen. You can scan that QR code to register or find us on LinkedIn.